Hello, everyone. I am on hour 10 of my 24 in 24 for Sam's challenge, where every hour, on the hour for 24 hours today, 24th of July, so 247 for those of us in the UK, the date format, to raise visibility of what we at Samaritans do. So, we are a charity that supports our callers who are feeling. Um, Going through tough time, maybe feeling suicidal. We are available 24/7, 365 days a year, which is why my fundraising target is 2473.65. So it's an odd number. I don't know. I just decided, because I was feeling funny the other day. So also, by doing that, we're providing space for conversations about things that really matter. And on this session, we have Lawrence Newcombe. Hi, Lawrence.
Hi, Pay. Thanks a lot for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for stepping in to do this session. You want to talk about social anxiety at work, and also I think you mentioned you were curious about what I do at Samaritan. So let the conversation flow. So tell me a little bit more about how you're feeling on this particular topic.
Yeah. So yeah, firstly, just wanted to say, yeah, I think it's amazing what you're doing today. I think it's wonderful just to, yeah, really sort of raise awareness and yeah, kind of motivate people to help support what Samaritans do. I think yeah, you and your organisation and well, more than one organisation really. It's yeah, really sort of a network of motivated, caring people doing
Mm.
really important work. And yeah, so thanks so much for yeah for being who you are and kind of keeping this going. So yeah, I think I yeah, it was very interesting hearing that you kind of wanted to sort of have some focus during the sessions on topics on mental health. And there's something I mean I think most people who know me well are sort of know what my relationship with anxiety is. Most people who I who I kind of interact with who aren't sort of very close sort of personal close in my personal life probably don't have a good sense of that. And I thought it was for me it's probably quite a good opportunity to talk a little bit about that. And hopefully I of course everyone's story is different, but perhaps sort of elements of this might resonate with others in the community. I know we sort of called this talk or this this chat social anxiety at work. I think for me actually it's that my anxiety, my social anxiety, has a relationship with work. And actually, funnily enough, I don't think it expresses a lot directly at work, but I think it is influenced very strongly from work. um, and yeah, I'm just conscious it's probably something that most people I work with aren't really aware of. Um, and yeah, like I say, I'm sure there are others that have related or similar things that yeah, it would perhaps be interesting to hear from somebody who struggles with the same sorts of things. So
So describe what that feels like for you. You know.
yeah, um, I think for me the I suppose the most directly that anxiety affects my life is in how I relate to people, both I suppose kind of socially, as in in I guess kind of unstructured social environments is probably the best way to put it. And how it affects how that has affected the relationships that I have with people over time. Um, the For me, I suppose, yeah, to answer your question kind of directly, what I at this point in my life, what I really find very hard is being with people and relating to people when I don't feel necessarily like 100% comfortable with, I don't know them extremely well, and I don't have, I'm not in a position I can always let my guard down, I suppose. And for me, that triggers, um, yeah, it triggers the, well, I guess this sort of the typical anxiety
Mm.
symptoms. Yeah, like kind of like rushing heart, like worry, stress, uh, yeah, just yeah, feeling edgy, feeling anxious
Has it,
around
sorry,
people. And oh, sorry.
my question.
Mm.
Has it, like, was it like growing up? Is it something that developed as you grew and, got kind of like more pronounced at
Uh,
work, or tell me?
so yeah, it's a good question. I think it's quite complicated. So in my family, we have anxiety is, yeah, I think probably most or all members of my direct family struggle with anxiety in one way or another. Um, yeah, we have possible sort of neurodivergency in the family as well. Um, and I mean, the way that I saw my yeah, I suppose how I kind of feel about this and how this manifests to me, um it wasn't really obvious to me that it was anxiety and it was social anxiety until relatively recently. I think probably the last 5 years or so, when it has got a lot worse as well. And I think I've, for a long time, without really kind of knowing it, I sort of had coping strategies and ways of compensating, um, that I don't know that were, in retrospect, I don't know that they were all kind of good ways of dealing with it, but I think I kind of had made ways of dealing with it myself. Um, and I almost kind of overcompensated. And I think I did, like, if you were to ask me now, like, do you see yourself as an introvert or an extrovert? I would, 100% I'm an introvert. Like I kind of I need downtime. Like I need to be away from people and I need to recharge. And um, whereas earlier in my life, I think that would have been a bit more complicated. And I think that's because I kind of, I felt like I needed to push beyond that. As a child, I was always very introverted. And as an older teenager and as a young adult, I feel like I pushed through that basically and kind of pretended to be this big personality and to kind of be big and chatty and an extrovert, and found ways of kind of pushing myself through that worked for a while, I suppose.
But that sounds exhausting, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Especially
yeah,
if you're a natural introvert. And so my understanding of this is that if you're an introvert, you get more energy being by yourself. And
yeah,
extrovert, it's the opposite is true. So if you don't find it comfortable and you're forcing yourself to be, like you say, this big personality, it must be really, really exhausting, to.
yeah. And I think for a long time that kind of was my life, and I think
Mm,
I just sort of ascribed that as just sort of normal. Like that's, you just, you kind of push and you put yourself out there. And um but I think to some extent as well, perhaps because almost I feel like I almost had a character that I was playing in some sense. And um I think that kind of helped to it helped it not be such yeah, kind of a front of mind prevalent, it wasn't. Whereas, now I feel I'm like, I don't know, I suppose I try to be more true to who I am, and who I authentically am, and kind of pick up on those signs
mm.
um of being worn out basically. um and yeah, better able to recognize it and better able to kind of to engage with it, I suppose, and to really actually feel it and be
Mm.
aware of what the what the link is between how I'm um yeah what my sort of outward life is, and how that impacts my who I am on the inside. uh,
You said that it's you said that it got a bit worse the last 5 years.
yeah
Can you tell me more?
yeah um so I think what kind of really I mean there was a bit of a confluence of things. Oh, excuse me. Is uh Yes, the honest answer. So I mean the the obvious one you could probably guess by the time frame is of course kind of COVID. We were all spending lots more time alone, time at home. um I That kind of for me that sort of coincided the sort of year or two before COVID. I'd been preparing for CTA. I took CTA like just before COVID. Um, that was also for me. That was a of course, you need lots of time,
Yeah.
not going out and doing things. So I'd kind of had this like year or two of like being very much. Like, I was just very very into work. I suppose is the way to put it. I was working normal normal job, normal hours, and then I was working lots more um, on CTA study, and I was also I was doing sort of open source kind of development, and developing an app, and I was just doing all this like work stuff basically,
Hmm.
um, and it kind of without me really being that sort of conscious of um, what it was doing. I felt like I enjoyed it. I was having a good time, which I guess is is also sort of says something about introvert versus extrovert. Like I kind of liked that I was just sort of had this thing that I was doing on my own. That anyway, so yeah, that was part of it. I think just having a lot of time away from not basically not practicing, like not
Okay.
practicing socializing and being with people and
So,
the
sorry, carry on.
mm. Oh yeah. So I think it kind of developed to the point that it was like it was impossible not to be consciously
Mm.
aware of how difficult I found things
Okay.
at that point. And it yeah, I think the problem grew basically, and it became really kind of uh, unmanageable in terms of how it was impacting on my social life.
So what I'm hearing is that COVID came, you had, you on your journey to CTA, your certified technical architect path, which allowed you to turn inwards and focus on your mission, yourself. Then COVID came in, like things were like shut down outside, which meant, limited opportunities to like kind of like socialize. And then you had your work, and then you had the app that you were building, and things like that. And so basically you had all these things, like this is your happy place, just being by yourself. And so what I'm hearing is that what that meant was that because you didn't give yourself the opportunity to be out there or to practice, now that you have to, it's just more difficult. Is that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yes, yeah. I think that's a very good way of
Mm,
putting it. Yeah.
cool. That is kind of tough. So what are you thinking you'd like to change? Do you feel that you need to be more like you were before, push through, or do you think, because you're a dad now as well, so it's more, at least for now, when your little one is so little, it's going to be more inwards,
Mm,
kind of like focused until your son goes to school, and then you're going to have to be more open because their social life will open.
mm.
So what do you think you'd like to do?
Um, I think for what would I like to do? Um, I think what I try to do now, which I think is the same thing, um, is I think I've just increasingly recognised, like, basically I'm not who I wanted to be 10 years ago, in the sense that I think it's important for me to understand myself to the extent that I know I'm not this like outgoing kind of can just be in big group environments indefinitely and be happy about it basically. And um sorry, to qualify that, like I can do that, but I can't do that all the time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
a huge investment of energy
Yeah.
um and I I mean, what I try to do now is to kind of consolidate and to focus on the elements of sort of social life that are most important to me, and not like not sort of shy away from things, but be choosy, I suppose, about
Mm.
um, um, yeah, what kind of merits the time to engage and what doesn't, and um, yeah, so that's part of it. I think is just kind of like accepting my limitations, I suppose, and sort of working with that. Um, I mean, I've also found for me therapy has been useful. Um, I think it kind of helped me to understand sort of links with. I mean, there's, I guess there's like therapy is interesting and therapy is useful. Like the things that it's been interesting for me, I think are kind of to helping me to understand sort of how my way of thinking links to aspects of how, what happened during my childhood and sort of wider kind of uh, family trauma and family kind of issues and then it's been useful in the sense that I've had CBT and more sort of general therapy. The CBT particularly has been kind of helpful, I think, to help to understand sort of try to understand triggers and coping strategies that I can use basically to sort of identify when something's going to be a problem and to have ways to
Mm.
um, to manage when I am in those situations. So yeah, I think kind of continuing to try to just be more mindful and um, mindful of myself and to find ways to cope. Um,
Mm.
in sort of being honest with myself, basically, which is something that I just wasn't for most of my life. And um,
Can I you said something earlier on that I want to just ask you. Use the phrase you can't feel that you can let your guard down when you're in social situations. What does that mean?
I think so. The way I suppose the way this manifests for me is that I have a lot of anxiety about how people perceive me,
Hmm.
um, and I think I'm always worried that I'm not going to come across the right way. Basically, that
Mm.
I'm going to say something that sounds stupid or that is insensitive or um, basically do something wrong in a kind of a social situation, which is is kind of in itself sounds ridiculous even to hear me myself say it, but that's kind of how it feels. It's as you think, well, socializing, that's the time where it doesn't really matter so much, but for me, like socializing is this, it's a, it's just full of pitfalls of being misunderstood um or yeah, doing something inadvertently inappropriate,
Yeah.
basically. Um, so yeah. So for me, yeah, certainly at its, like when it's bad for me, that's kind of how I feel. Is I feel like I'm constantly
Mm,
basically on the defense, like I'm trying to.
mm.
Yeah.
Um, a friend was telling me, this was when I was quite young. I had this like pen pal who was in Seattle, and he was explaining to me how just going up to, you go to a restaurant, you got your cutlery. Let's say one of the cutlery was dirty, and his mom would say, just go and get a new one. And he found it so crippling to go up and just that one thing. And something he said struck me, which was, he felt that those people, like his classmates and his peers, who were born with the kind of confidence to just go, he felt like that was like a superpower that he didn't have,
Mm,
and that he wished that, that things came as easily to him as it did other people. um but then in order to function, just like you got to push, you got to go and, ask for that fork, or ask for that date, or tell them your meal was wrong. Even, he said even something like that just caused him so much stress. He'd rather eat the wrong thing than
yeah.
to cause a scene. And something you said earlier on, which is, the possibilities of being misunderstood, was just at the forefront of his mind. And again, he kept saying those who are just so confident they don't realize that it makes things so easy for them, which is not easy for other people. And and no one
Mhm.
seems to understand, why can't you take that fork and ask for a new one? And he was telling me all this. And I think we were about like 15. We were like pen pals, and it was the first time,
Mm.
that brought to fore. So something you said just kind of like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean that that kind of things just sounds. Yeah, I can very much relate to that. And yeah, and we are all like, the beautiful thing about being a human being. Like we're all just so very
hmm.
different, really, and it's quite. Um, yeah, it's important to be, to try to put your to see things as others see them, because we do all see things so differently. And
So, um, what is the most helpful thing a friend can do for you? Should they force you out of your comfort zone? Should they respect it when, oh, Lawrence doesn't want to do that? I don't think he'd like to do that. Let's just not push him. What do you think would be most helpful for you?
mm, that's a really good question. Um, I think I think empathy with being flexible, and being flexible about, basically knowing that, so some of my very best friends, even people who I consider very close to me, there's still, this is still a problem for me. Like, it's even just sort of meeting up with one person or a small group, this can still come out, even though I love somebody and, really value the time to spend together. That doesn't mean that it does, there aren't elements of anxiety for me. And um, I think for people I know to kind of to understand that, and um, I suppose to to adapt their expectations around, how often to perhaps to expect me to be able to do things like that, maybe how long to do those things for, maybe rather than, like, I don't know. Yeah. So for example, like something like going for dinner at somebody's house can be quite stressful for me, because
Mm,
it's quite open ended. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to be there.
mm,
There's
mm,
very little structure to what we might. do or talk about, so it's difficult to yeah, it can feel quite intimidating, I suppose. Um, Whereas something like going for a coffee in a coffee shop is easier because it's a bit more time bound,
Mm,
it's a neutral environment, and it's kind of easy to come and go, I suppose. And so yeah, so I think for a friend, I mean, of course, there's no way I would expect this of everybody, um, but yeah, to perhaps people to, maybe to ask me what do you think we should do, um, or even things like, intentionally kind of making things sort of a bit more short and a bit more structured, um, in sort of a social environment. Yeah, sort of not like big groups. I'm just terrible with big groups. I also have very bad hearing, so that's part of it. It's really difficult when there's lots of people talking and so on. But um, and um, so yeah, so I think that's part of it. Um, I think also this is maybe sort of something slightly separate to the social anxiety, but I feel like in social settings, I kind of need reassurance in some ways that things are okay. And so just kind of being just generally kind of caring and nice is quite important to me, because as I say, I can I'm always just worried about being misinterpreted, or or kind of doing something wrong, and it's quite nice to just hear that I'm not doing something wrong. Um,
that's
yeah, but,
just you know what, I am so glad that you've brought all this up on this particular topic. So just before this, I had Richard on, and he's saying that he didn't realize that you were in the same place and things like that, and you coming up with the little tips like structured, outings with defined end and more boundaries, asking you what you'd like to do. I mean, I, I don't have any friends who are not that I don't consider you a friend, but who tells me that they have social anxiety, and so I don't think about that sort of thing. But um, I had a session earlier this morning with Christy, and she was actually talking about grief. And then we were talking about how can your friends best support you at this time. And she said something very, very similar, because sometimes when you're going through grief, you have so many things on your brain, and you're paralyzed sometimes. And asking you to make a decision, open ended as well, also feels the same thing. So she also said, she preferred. mm Closer, more structured kind of suggestions where
mm,
it's easy for her to say yes or no, rather than an open one with I don't know when it's going to end, what we're going to talk about. I don't feel comfortable with so many people, and they might not know what's going on with me, and they might talk about something else that triggers some pain. So it feels really useful to have very tangible tips for
mm,
how friends can support their friends who might be struggling with social anxiety, who might be going through something big at home, or who's still grieving over loss or things like that. So that was really useful, Lawrence. Thank you very much for kind of um, sharing that.
yeah. No, thanks so much for having me. As I say, it's great to have an opportunity to talk about this, because this is just it's just something I don't think most people I work with know about. And I suspect I think what you're doing is a wonderful thing, partly because it is encouraging people to talk about things that don't easily come up at work and are important elements of who we are as people. And
Yeah.
yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity. And
So Richard was also saying, in the comments, yes, women in tech, we do have a lot of sessions that where we talk about things like this, but there isn't one just for men.
yeah,
I think there is a perception that men should be very alpha, we you don't cry and just man up and all those sort of things, which makes it which is the reason why um you know young men and now actually middle-aged men are the highest risk of suicide,
Mm,
because they just keep it all inside because it's expected to, and it's and I feel very deeply that when you keep things inside, it's just like really quite bad for the soul. So, what Richard suggests, maybe it's a conversation for another time, but I think
yeah.
you do need a platform.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a yeah. No, I think it's a yeah, it's a great observation. I think it's a really good idea, and it'd be lovely to see more things like this kind of woven into,
Yeah.
maybe yeah, things that we all already do together. But yeah, don't always um yeah,
Mm.
yeah, don't always include topics like this.
So I don't know how I can support, but maybe I'll reach out to Richard and find a way to help you have something similar. I know last time we spoke, you wanted to interview me, I think, about Samaritans. I'm happy to I'm more awake now. Actually, it's 9:30. I kept all my sessions half an hour so I could crack. I just have a micro nap, but I'm feeling okay. And
Yeah.
if there are things you want to ask me, yeah, floor is
If
yours.
yeah, if you're well, why don't we time box this to up to 9:45 to give you? I think you should have some time for a break.
Okay,
But
yeah,
I'm fine to carry on, and
okay.
yeah, I'd be really interested to talk. Yeah, so I'm curious. Yeah, I've heard you sort of talk briefly, I suppose, about Samaritans quite a few times, and sort of reference it in some of your talks and so on. And I know that it's something that's really that you're really passionate about, and yeah, very kind of vocal to help others understand that it's something that you do and that it's something that they could do. I yes, I suppose just to start with, I'm curious kind of how you yeah, what your sort of journey to Samaritans was, and yeah, sort of what the circumstances and the motivations were when you started volunteering.
So I've spoken to a few people this morning already where they have actually shared that they have either attempted or thought about it. And it's really interesting because this is the first time I've heard it. There a lot of them are friends, and we don't. It's not something we share. Oh, we're at a pub. Oh, yesterday I just thought about this. It just doesn't happen. Um, so I've also probably shared before that I was in a violent relationship before I got married, and that was a really really tough time, where I would have been a caller.
Mm,
I was at such a desperate place, um, and it's a story for another time. But it kind of turned around. I left him, and I have found my lovely husband. He's just amazing. I think I won the lottery on him. He's just such a deep well of calm to my craziness, and he tolerates me and he balances me out so much. And so I felt that um that was time to to support other people, because I went through that journey, and luckily I didn't take that step, but I was very close a couple of times. And so that's kind of like where I thought about it more. And so when before my boys were born, I joined Samaritans in Harrow, and then after my kids were born and things were a bit more settled, then I rejoined at my current branch, and I found that. Um, and I do say this as when I joined SAMS and I got the training on how to listen, a lot of my projects just got easier. Easy in a sense, less drama, less human drama,
mm.
because
Your projects in the sense of your
Yeah,
your work,
yeah,
basically your
my
profession.
work
Yeah.
projects, my implementations, my teams,
Mm,
because I was listening better.
mm,
I was coaching them to listen better to each other, and to listen to me and to listen to the customers. And we're like, one part about listening, especially for Sam's, is you just put aside all the judgment or problem solving. And so it's a quick tip for anyone listening. So I also train new volunteers, and they always say to me the biggest fear is, what if they say the wrong thing? You have someone who is very desperate on the phone in crisis, and you're so scared of saying the wrong thing. And um I can say that if you can remember two things, which is no judgment, the
mm,
sound of your voice, the pitch, the tone, you have to really pay attention to remove all judgment and to not solve. And this will remove 90% of the wrong things that you might say that would upset the caller.
mm,
So for me, being on the phone, if any of those two things creep into my conversation, the feedback is very instant because my caller will hang up straight away. That
yeah.
means I know, okay, I've said something wrong, or it's said the wrong way. Then I'll sit and I'll think about it, and it might be, oh, I said the word really, but
Mm,
that could sound very judgmental, you know,
mm,
when I don't mean it to. Okay, next time I'll not say that, or I'll say something slightly different. So it is really, you know, good training. So my train my team to not be judgmental, and things just flow easier.
yeah. That's fascinating to hear, and actually that relates to something else I was going to ask about, and it's really interesting to hear that the I suppose the skills that you use at Samaritans are directly relevant to your work, and of course it's engaging with people um, and being there and responding and as you say and actively listening and being a good listener, which is something not everybody is uh, yeah, it's something that I think we probably most of us could be much better
Yeah.
at, and has real value in work as well. And um
I see
yeah.
that as training. So I go for a shift every week. It's
Mm,
training because we have to keep our judgment aside. So I've got people who call that I disagree with very strongly in you can just imagine all the things we get a lot of prisoners who call, for
mm,
example. So you can imagine the kind of things, the conversations that we have. Or we have people who have very specific ideas about parenting, or politics, and um, the state of the country at the moment, and why they think that it's going wrong and how it's affecting them. And for example, things like being against somebody who's different than you, right? It could have a very it could be expressed in not a very nice way, but at the bottom of things is that we are afraid for ourselves that they're going to take away our security, for example. So
mm,
it is, i have to I have to help to peel back all the top layer to get to the bottom, right?
mm,
But a
mm,
lot of that takes work, and I can't
mm,
show that I do not agree with all these things that you just said.
mm.
So not being judgmental, and also helping to peel back, helping the other person, just slowly giving them the space to just vent,
Yeah.
not reacting to the things that they vent, but then like focusing on the more personal feeling things.
Yeah, yeah, and like you say, kind of offering that space is, I mean, that's uh, being able to do that without judgment is a difficult thing to do sometimes, and particularly because of course, you're also not completely passive. You're not just sitting and saying nothing. You and you are a human, of course, as well. And yeah, I presume you want to build an emotional connection as well, but you also have to be very accepting, I suppose,
I
of
don't think
whoever's not.
accepting is the word. Let me think. Maybe accepting in the sense of people will be people, I guess,
Mm,
and people are entitled to how they feel based on their experience, um, but not letting that affect the conversation, so to speak. And so I bring that into, like, at work when I'm doing projects. So usually my projects are usually green. Um, because if it's amber or red, it's usually because of a technical issue or something. It is rarely because of politics or human nature, because
mm,
once you are able to genuinely listen and not judge someone,
mm,
like, oh, are you still using, classic, for example, or something like that, and making people feel bad that they've chosen a specific way of doing things, then people are more open. um,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So,
There's a question for you. It's this one. Have people tried to help clumsily yourself, Lawrence, and was everyone be different? Were there any considerations you wish they'd had?
um, that's a great question. Someone tried to help me clumsily. I mean, I'm. I mean, what this isn't quite. Maybe this isn't quite a direct answer to the question. I think, but, well, firstly, just to say that I mean, as a, yeah, I mentioned, I mean, most people that are kind of very close to me are aware of this, but a lot of people who are kind of that next level,
Mm,
um, probably don't know, or maybe I've mentioned it to them once or twice, but it's really not front of mind for them. So it's, I think the honest answer is like probably people haven't kind of tried, or at least in ways that I'm aware of, haven't sort of really kind of obviously been trying to help me in a direct way, other than people who are very close to me and I do think kind of get it, or I've had very deep conversations with them and do sort of get it to a much greater extent. The I mean, something I would mention that it's just it's kind of a common misunderstanding, I think, in people that I do talk about it with. I think people are often surprised to hear things like I. So, for example, like I spoke at London's Calling this year. I've like spoken at events several times, and like that, like of course I get like nervous about it, as I would imagine lots of other people do. But it's not like like, oh my god, this is like putting me like way out of like my comfort zone. I can't deal with this in the way that a lot of sort of social situations, actually, situations that I think for others are really basic. Just things like being in a group of people that you sort of know but don't know that well in a pub, for
mm,
example. And I think, so yeah, I did to qualify. This isn't really an answer, but I think, yeah, it's people who are sort of not intimately kind of aware of social anxiety, or and some of this I think is generalized anxiety rather than specifically social anxiety. But there's the way that it comes out is maybe not that obvious to everybody. And yeah, so things like, I don't know, like running a workshop at work, or yeah, just say sort of doing talks, or like doing things that actually involve lots of people but are very structured, are much easier for me. And um, and yeah. So I think that that's kind of a misconception that people have, but that hasn't really translated into people sort of clumsily helping me,
mm.
or trying to help me. But But yeah, it's a really good question.
I want to touch something that is linked to also the training we have at SAMS, which is never ever assume, right? So that's
Mm,
one of the things that we, because we bias comes into play, right? Like we hear a specific voice, a tone, or an accent, then we make a picture in our head of who that person is, and then we treat them a different way because of how we think. And it is linked to the social anxiety aspect. So uh, I'll just give you an anecdote that illustrates that. And it is so I'm Chinese, right? So my family in Malaysia, they have my relatives, they have a very Chinese way of thinking, which is a lot of assumptions, right?
mm,
So they might see a cousin who has a new girlfriend, and they're in a social environment, so I'm calling home to get updates and just catch up with my family and stuff. And then what I'll hear is, oh, that girl is so stuck up, she just didn't want to talk to me, or
yeah,
just blew past me. And I'm thinking, she might be very, very shy, right? So my family
yeah,
can be quite extra. So it is assuming. So and for yourself, for example, who might not enjoy lots of people and very noisy kind of social situations, other people might uh, ascribe something to you, say, hey, Lauren's
mm,
very he's very rude, he just, but it's because you didn't hear him, because you said, you've got a hearing, me too, my left ear as well. And that's the thing, for other people to be aware there can be more than one reason why someone may not be as confident or as fluid or as open and gregarious as other people, and just bearing that in mind
mm,
mm, could make things a little bit easier and better, rather than Lawrence is so he's a bit rude. He didn't say hi when I said hi at London's Calling, for example. So
mm.
this is just a tip for other people to be aware that sometimes there's more than one way of reading a situation.
I think that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, and I think that, giving people the benefit of the doubt. Really, it's like most people are really nice,
Mm,
trying to do the right thing, and
mm,
yeah, probably that person didn't say hi because, yeah, I mean, it's very unlikely that somebody didn't say hi because they were trying to be mean, which, but it's also easy to sort of jump to that conclusion, even if it's not really logical. And I think,
that's true.
yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it.
We have a question from Vasanti. Um, how have you felt during this conversation? It's been awesome hearing from you.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for Santi. It's been really nice actually talking about it. I yeah, it's just nice to be to be honest about things and to be kind of open and um yeah, yeah, it feels good to share. I think there's for a, a, I mean there's been times where I've been like, I don't know, like, a kind of anxious about being anxious, almost like, I don't want to be perceived as unable to socialize, or like not be like a, yeah, I don't know, like not be seen as a good somebody's good in social situations. As like silly as that sounds, it's like just that in itself feels like
Mm,
a negative. And it's, I think, I don't, yeah, I suppose go back to Pei, you asked me earlier, sort of where do I kind of what do I want to do, where do I want to be. And yeah, I think that's something that I just increasingly want to kind of to be, is to just be more comfortable and more open with who I am and how I work with anyone who's interested. And yeah,
mm,
it's great to share for that reason. So
good
yeah,
stuff.
thanks, Santi.
And here is Beach, who said that your sharing mechanism is amazing. You did a good job of saying hi. And there you go.
Oh, thanks so much, Peach. That's really nice, and it was really lovely to meet you. Thank
Right.
you.
I like beach as well. Okay, so I'm just wrapping up because I do need a comfort break before my next one. Thank you so much, Lawrence, for really eye-opening and a fun, engaging session. And just before I go, I'm just gonna pop that here for. Come on, come on. Here you go. Right. For anyone who is watching, please can you donate, fundraise, because that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm staying up for. Thank you, Lawrence, for your generous donation. Also for your time as well. And sharing those things. I'm just glad that you were able to share, so that other people can help those who could use a helping hand in social situations.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Pay. And it's yeah, as I say, it's a wonderful that you're doing this. And
Mm.
yeah, wish you all the best for your all the remaining hours.
Yes, yes, I have 14 hours to go. All right. Anyway, thanks so